So, with that said, we are ready to get started. We have 3 presenters today. Our first presentation is titled, Is This an Esri Application? Freedom with Esri's API-Driven Platform. And our presenter is Shujing Li. She is a graduate from ASU's MAS GIS program. Go ASU! She's been working at Gistic Research, Inc. in the past 5 years as a front-end developer. She is behind most of all Gistic's recent applications, including AZGIV, EMAP, and Linear Bench suite of products. So with that, we will turn it over to Shujing. I will make you the presenter. List. Okay, you should now be our presenter and should be able to go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, thank you, Shawnee, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so before I divulge anything, let me first do a short demo of Event Ninja. That's our latest addition to the Linear Bench software family. Let's first browse some data, AADP event data. At this zoom level, the application will only bring some sample data. If we zoom in a bit to the Gila band area and filter on a specific route, I8 here I pick. Turn off the observation date filter so that the data, current data and history data will all be shown here. Okay, now let's take a look at the data view window and the time space diagram here. Each data row in the data view window is represented by a rectangle bounded by a pair of measures and a pair of timelines here. And the synchronized view of events in map and data window and time space diagram are in display here. It's very easy to make topological errors when managing linear events. We can turn on the topology check here, and that can dynamically detect the topological issues. Here we can see little one of the topo errors here, and let us find a way to fix it. Okay, let's go select this and go to the correct mode to fix it. So in the correct mode, we can edit the measure directly in the card view here, but that is hard now to creating topological error inconsistency. So instead, we're going to use the TSD, the diagram here, to accomplish the task. We can modify the data by dragging it here easily, and it will snap to a route reference here. Zoom a little bit, see it's snapped to whichever reference you pick. And let us commit the changes we just made. And go back to the Discover mode to take a look, and it's fixed. Look, the error is fixed. Okay. So for those of you who are in transportation, you may relate the demo application to Esri's event editor and web application as part of Roads and Highways package. And yes, our objective is to make linear events management more efficient, less error-prone, and even fun within the Esri's ecosystem through mostly the UI enhancements, such as those you have just seen. And the goal will give us here. Bo will give us a deep dive into the Event Ninja this Thursday afternoon for the business case behind its design. I'm only here to share the application's technical makeup. Esri provides frameworks, tools, and APIs for its users to extend ArcGIS functionalities, from as simple as adding a button onto the desktop UI or developing a form with UI components to streamline desktop-based workflow to creating or configuring a web application for users with a specific business focus. And Esri's RESTful Web API provides GIS pros and developers the keys to its entire ArcGIS technical ecosystem. And Event Ninja you just saw was built from scratch this way. As you can see, the Event Ninja mirrors Event Editor in its architecture. The authentication is through the ArcGIS Enterprise portal, and the editing is made to the Roads and Highway database through ArcGIS server. We added a separate server for additional services that was missing from or not as convenient to use in ArcGIS server. ArcGIS API is what we use for service calls to Roads and Highway database through ArcGIS server. Some of the calls we frequently use are apply, edit, get versions, reconcile, etc. You can see it from here. This is the documentation for the apply edit service. It lists specifications for the input parameters like edits and versions, as well as some examples. It's very detailed documentation and can cover our need for most development tasks. Okay, so however, as powerful as the API is, there are still times we need something very specific, like the API doesn't have it. For example, I use the query service to get records in the AADT layer you just saw. And it's pretty flexible. You can define the date, the range of the AADT, or which route you'd like to see the data on. But in our case, we need to ignore the date range and bring all the records, the history and the current records to the view. So the query from the ArcGIS API doesn't meet our needs, so we create our own service, which ignores the date filter and can bring us all the data. We also create a service like getting domain lists for the column so that user can update it by picking up a value instead of accidentally putting values that aren't supposed to be. And here's a framework. So the back end is written in Node.js with Happy framework. The front end is written in Angular framework with the JavaScript APIs such as OpenLayers, D3, the topological suite to support the mapping, the diagramming, and topology processing and rendering. And to ensure code quality and consistency, TypeScript is the primary coding language. Okay, so the technical landscapes are getting increasingly open and dynamic, and the boundaries between GIS and non-GIS are blurring and even disappearing. I personally enjoy very much in creating the new Event Ninja inside the Esri ecosystem. Do you have any questions?
Great, thank you, Shujing. Everybody remember to put your questions in the chat section, or you can hold them till the end and raise your hand and we'll get to you that way. Great, thank you very much. That was great.
Thanks.
All right, so our next presenter is Bill Beaver, and he will be presenting using Python and ArcGIS Pro. Bill has been with Santa Cruz County as GIS Senior Analyst for 5 years. He has a master's in GIST from University of Arizona. He's been an itinerant program for over 40 years and has a math instructor at Pima College in Tucson for 16 years. So please welcome Bill, and we will give him
Hello.
the
Can you
presentation
hear me?
ball. Yes, we can.
I
Okay.
need to share.
Hold on. Let me make you the presenter first.
Okay.
Oops. Why is that not? I have to drag it back to me first. Nope, that is not.
On the video.
All right. Well, I need to pass you the icon so that you will be the presenter. Not letting me do that.
Do you want me to try?
Sure, that would be great.
All right. Let me give it a shot. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Look at you.
Share. Okay. Okay. Did it show up?
Nope, not yet.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go. Okay.
There, now we see it.
Where am I? Okay. Hi. I'm Bill Beaver, Senior GIS Analyst, Santa Cruz County, Arizona. And this is using Python and Arc Pro Lightning Round. Now, there are several advantages to doing this. First, it's 64-bit Python. It's faster. 3x has some nice features that 2x does have, and 2x is dying out. It also has Jupyter Notebooks, which is a very interesting feature. And of course, as we saw in the last presentation, there's a lot better connection to Arc Online. Now, the disadvantages is I have to convert the code from 2x to 3x, and I have hundreds of programs. It's also not a full development environment, but that can be gotten around with pretty easily. Also, there's a bit of trust in Arc Pro because I've been burned by Arc Pro, and mostly errors in Arc Pro and bugs. Now, this uses a version of Anaconda, which is a data science platform. It has this idea of environments, which is an instance of code configuration. So there's a language, there's the R or Python, there's a version, it can be 3.3 or 2.6 or whatever. And there's also, you can add extensions to each one, which are your packages. So you can have different packages for different environments. Now, Jupyter Notebooks have little regions of Python which you can run. It also has what's called markup, which is sort of a very simple HTML type language. Now, I'm going to use it for workflow management, but the main thing this was developed for was data science replication, which you can do an analysis and then you can send it to somebody and someone can start with the raw data and look at your analysis and trust it, for one thing. These can also be published in Arc Online. They're sort of a super notebook. I do believe there's a cost. Okay, so the demo, we have a road feature update project. Between 2006 and 2008, the road center lines were created from paper maps. 2017, the Forest Service roads were added. There's a lot of errors in them, and we have different versions of road center lines. We have the road center lines for public works and whatever. This was started in ArcMap, and we developed a bunch of Python scripts to sort of help it out. So what I'm going to do is run a video and talk over it. So here's our Python. Notice that the environment is a clone. So what you can't do is your default environment, you can't update or add packages. So you want to clone the environment. So there's different ways of cloning it. You can clone a clone. You can add ones that you created in another service. Okay, so here's the program. We have the realignment, and the realignment has some attributes, and that's the old stuff. And then we want to have what's realigned. Now, this one's pretty good, but you notice the realigned hasn't been done at all. Now, here is the code. Get down there. I'm doing this virtually and virtually, double virtually. Now, first, you want to take each one of these potential edits, and you want to turn them into a point feature. So this is the first one, run point feature, and it runs all the point features in the feature class. Okay. Now, this is the program it runs. The first part of the program it runs. This is data driven, meaning that there's a dictionary of parameters that is fed to another program that does the actual work. So I divide the data from the actual work. Now let's run it. And sometimes there's 100 of these in this section, so you could go take a break now. You know, please don't right now. And you can see Roadrunner Court and Chula Court now has points to it. So with these points, we're going to create the road, and we're going to draw the points, and then we're going to use the other section to create lines from the points. First, we create a line from the points, and then we smooth the line. Now, this one doesn't need to do the smoothing line, and it's actually not a bad error, but here we are creating the line with points. Okay. And so this just needs 2 points. Let's save that. And then the next thing we have to do is we want to set the points parameter to 1. Okay, and by accident, I created another record, which is real common when editing this. And so let me delete that. Okay, so that's all done, and we're all set to go. Now, the next thing, of course, is to do the lines after we save it. Okay. So now we're going to run the work notebook, and it's run create line. And as I say, it creates lines, and then it smooths the line. And it's pretty fast. And you could see the original smooth has to be 0. So that's the definition. And you can see it disappeared because smooth was set to 1. And now in the finished product, we have a finished road. Okay, so that does that. Let me stop this. Okay, the next thing we would do is we would turn the workflow into a set of tasks, and then use these tasks, or we could create buttons, whatever we want. I like the set of tasks because then I can send this to someone else, and another person can do all the hard work. Okay. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Bill. That was great. Remember, everybody, put your questions in the chat window, and we will get those at the end of the presentations. We have one more presentation, and that is Wildfire Situational Awareness Made Easy, presented by Wesley Kortuem. Wesley is the GIS manager for the Arizona Department of Health Services. He graduated from ASU with his BS in geography in 2002. Shortly after graduation, he began working for ADHS and has been leading and building their GIS program ever since. we will turn the presentation over to Wes. Actually, Jennifer, I think you might have to do that.
I will. Finding Wes. Here we go. Okay, it should be coming to you. You should be able to share your screen.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, very good. So I should be able to share my screen here. Give me a second. Oops. Share. I'll get this figured out eventually.
No problem. We're all just doing it by the seat of our pants.
That's right.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Okay.
Ah, there we go. Perfect.
You see it?
We
Yep.
do.
You see my screen okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, very good, very good. So, today I'm going to present to you our wildfire situational awareness viewer that our senior GIS analyst, Nicole Iden, created. She was hoping to present it to you all today, but was unable to make it, so I will do my best to present it on her behalf. Before getting into the demo, I want to give you some background on the application. Anytime there's an incident that involves the health department, the GIS team is one of the first to be called because we need to determine where the incident is, what's the extent of the incident, and what critical health infrastructure are nearby, specifically the facilities we license. The most common incident we respond to are wildfires. In the past, we would get the latest fire perimeter data and map it in ArcMap, then create a report of all the facilities nearby and submit both of these files to the Health Emergency Operations Center, or HEOC. This could take up to an hour for each map and report and was needed at least once a day for each active fire. Knowing that there were more efficient ways to do this and how much time it was taking my team, I asked Nikki to work on the problem, and she created the AZDHS Wildfire Situational Awareness Viewer you see here. With this viewer, our HEOC can now quickly create the needed maps and reports in a fraction of the time and without help from the GIS program. So I'm going to start here. Let me see here. This needs to be refreshed first of all. And I'm going to go to the operations response. Okay, so this solution that we implemented is the operations response configuration of ArcGIS Web App Builder, which is part of Esri's ArcGIS solution for emergency management. It's easily deployed via ArcGIS Pro, which publishes a solution template to ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. It requires ArcGIS Pro 2.4 to 2.6 and ArcGIS Online or Enterprise 10.7 to 10.81 with Managed Data Store. So if you want to know more about it, this is probably the best place for you to start, is at the ArcGIS Solutions for the Operations Dashboard on Esri's website. So coming back to our application, I'll try to give you a quick demo here. I will start with our data. So I'll switch this user guide over to our data, and I'll show you here that we have the National Interagency Fire Center data. This comes in, it's actually refreshed every 5 minutes, but they typically update their data once a day. And these points represent the location of a fire, where a fire started, and the size is how big it is. More importantly to us is this fire perimeter, and that they usually fly and get us new information once a day. Below that, we have our different health facilities. These are all facilities that we license at ADHS through our division of licensing. We have hospitals, long-term care facilities like nursing homes, lots of different medical facilities, every child care facility we license, residential facilities, even radiation control facilities. So there's a lot in there. Let's see here. So that's the data that we're working with, and what we need to do next is to search for a fire. If, let's say, we have an incident, lately we've had one called the Sears fire, So if we get a call from the HEOC or someone within the HEOC needs to run this analysis, they'll go find the Sears fire by typing it into the search. We get to the Sears fire here. It takes us to the point. I don't want to do my buffer around the point. I want to do it around the full perimeter because I want to know the full extent of this incident, not just where it started. So I'm going to zoom to that. And from these 3 points, we can toggle on and we can set the location for the Understand Impact tool. By default, it then draws a buffer around the selected polygon and does a 1 mile buffer distance. For ADHS, we typically do 15 miles. So I'm going to change that to 15, not 115, 15. There we go. And once I do that, it zooms out and I can click on All Facilities tab here. And I can see that we have 98 facilities that are within 15 miles. And each of these numbers corresponds to the point on the map. I can also go through and I can see the different categories for the different data layers I showed you earlier. So for medical facilities, we have 10. For child care facilities, we have 14, and so on. So the 2 requirements they had was to have a report, like a spreadsheet or table of some type with the facilities that are within 15 miles. So I can download each one of these individual groupings, or I can go back to all licensed facilities, hit the download button, and I now have the table with all the information for every one of these facilities that they can use if they need to contact any of these facilities for coordination. Now, the other aspect that they needed was a map. So we would just use the print button here, and we can print to PDF and provide them with the map as well. So this solution now allowed us to just a minute or two do what would have taken us an hour before. So that's greatly improved our efficiency. So let's see here. So how can you implement this solution? Well, the first thing I would do is start by going to the ArcGIS Solutions for Emergency Management, the Operations Response page. This is the tool that we use to develop our site. So I would go here and learn everything you can about it, try to get some background. And then the next step would be to use ArcGIS Pro to deploy a solution to ArcGIS Online or Portal. And then you're going to have to configure and add data to a web map like we did with all of our different licensed facilities. And then you'll have to configure the application in Web App Builder, and that's what I'll show you next here. So let's see. We're going to start by configuring this Understand Impact tool, because this is the tool that's really critical to putting this application together. So we can find that under Widgets and Understand Impact tool. So I'll hit Edit here. And this is really pretty simple. You can build this application super fast. So after you've added the layers into your web map, they'll show up here, and you can hit Add Tab, and you can find the different layers that you've added to your web map. And then you decide what type of analysis you want. For all of ours, we use proximity. And then we change the name, and then under Actions, you can come in here and make some more changes. This is what's going to show up down at that bottom tab that we saw. So there wasn't a lot of information, so we only had 3 different data points in there in order to fit it all in. And then we just click to display the feature count so we know how many features have been found. And let's see, there's a few other options here. I'm not going to go into all those for time's sake, but this is the big part. This is the bulk of it, and it's actually pretty easy to put together. So we did that to configure the Understanding Impact, and then we also did change our user guide from zip the typical help to actually be more of a tutorial specific to this application. And that was about it, I think. Let's see here. Yeah. So doing those simple actions, we were able to build an application pretty quickly. That really saved us quite a bit of time. And just in closing, I want to say a couple other things about it. So this application has enabled better customer service, allowing HGOC personnel and emergency managers across the state to run this analysis themselves. This is actually super important because it greatly expands the number of people that can perform these critical tasks. So the agency is no longer dependent on just our small GIS team to do this analysis for them. Also, the application can be used for other situations by dropping a point. Let's see, like we did earlier. Oh, here we go. There we go. So we can just drop a point somewhere, and we can figure out what's nearby. So if it were, let's say we actually had an incident a while back in Casa Grande where there was a power outage, and we knew the general area where that was. So if we would have had that tool at that time, we could just go to Casa Grande, and we could use the polygon, and we could click. And now we'd know all of the facilities that were within that area, so we could coordinate with them. Because there's nursing homes, there's assisted living. They might need generators for AC. They might need a lot of things. So having this tool now has opened up the possibilities to help those folks and do it much quicker. We did it before. It just took quite a bit longer. So lastly, a worse than average fire season coupled with the COVID pandemic made this new tool invaluable by enabling non-GIS personnel to quickly create high-quality maps and reports, freeing the GIS team to focus on other high-priority projects, which obviously is very key right now.
Dave, but it wasn't me this time. I didn't see Jay either. Jay wasn't in after you?
So I think we've got someone off mute there. So if there's any questions, I know we were waiting till the end of all of them to ask questions, but feel free to ask away. I'll put the links to our application as well as the link to the Esri solution in the chat box now, and I'll wait for any questions you might have.
That was a great presentation. Thank you, Wesley, and I thank you for filling in for Nicole at the last minute. I know it was rather sudden, so we appreciate you filling in for her today and presenting that. These were some really great tools that you guys have all presented this afternoon. Do we have any questions for our presenters?
If you have anything, you can type it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll send you on there. But here we go. For Wesley from Daniel, what was the biggest challenge developing this, if any?
Well, I've actually been wanting this application for years because we've spent so much time on these manual maps. So the biggest challenge was waiting for a good solution to come out from ESRI. Luckily, we talked with Eric from DEMA, and he had been using something similar. So he helped Nikki get started with it. And once we found the solution, it actually went pretty quick. It was a pretty easy thing to do to put it all together. It actually took more time configuring the pop-ups and all those little things than it did actually building the application. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions out there? Well, if we don't have any more questions, I think Shani has a few words of wrap up.
Yep, we'll wrap up this afternoon, but I'd like to thank all of our presenters. We really appreciate you sharing your skills and your knowledge and your time with us today. These are, as I say, really great tools. It's really great to see the work that everybody's doing out there in the GIS community. Be sure, please, to fill out a session survey, which you can find on the same page that you used to join the presentation. Look for the session survey button right next to the join session button. We really appreciate feedback on these. It really helps us when we're developing our conferences and putting together content. So we definitely read those. So please fill them out. And then a big thank you to all of our sponsors. This conference wouldn't be possible without them. They really help us pull it all together. We ask that you please take a moment to visit them in the sponsor gallery and then check out their Premium Plus sponsor donors during the breakout sessions throughout the conference to see what great things they have to present. And then feel free to join us again tomorrow. There will be plenty more great presentations for the rest of the week.